Assalamu alaikum. Peace be with you guys. Thank you for coming to listen to me. I come from Senegal. Senegal is a country in West Africa and former colony of France. So we speak French in school with the newspaper also, and as African coming from a context of post-colonial context is kind of put you in a situation of schizophrenia every time. For example, when you happen to go to school when you were 6 or 7, I compare myself to you. You're just using your mother tongue language. There's no tragic switch from the house to the school, the place where you have to acquire knowledge. But for people like us, it's always kind of tragic, because you used to be called from a name, a local name. You used to approach things from a certain perspective, using certain images and and values. And you go to school, everything changed. You're a new person. I remember when I first go to school, because at home they used to call me Baba. Baba means grandfather, because I have the name of the father of my father. And my name is Kansi. I didn't know it, And I went to school, and the first day I was there standing, and they called everybody. They didn't call Baba. And I went back home, and my father said, "How was the first day?" I said, "I don't know. They didn't call me." He said to me, your name is Amadou Kansi. Your name is not Baba." So since that day, I'm trying to, keep it clear in my head, And yeah, to contextualize, a little bit where I come from. And since we're talking about art, I can't say that there's no art form in Senegal. There's art form all over the world. Everywhere there's human beings, there are art forms. The thing is, the world is, the process of development of the world have been done in a such way that, the West is the reference, whether you like it or not, And when you talk about art, we refer to art schools. And the first president of Senegal, we were lucky enough, he was a poet, and he did believe in art and culture to develop a country. So he created the first art school, the first cultural infrastructure, just like the National Theatre, Performance School, and etc. But coming back to visual art, I would say that the first art form that we have has something to do with it's coming. Hey, what's going on? What's going on here? Okay, it's coming. Thanks. So it has something to do with the spiritual practice, because Senegal is 95% Muslim and 5% Christian, but they say 100% African beliefs, That's how they say, over there. And strangely, Senghor, the first president, was a Christian. And he was not from the majority, but he happened to be, people accept him because they just listen to what he was proposing. And more than that, Senegal also is a country of kind of free speech and dialogue. It has something to do with the geographical localization of Senegal. We are not far from, it's on the ocean, we're not far from 5 hours from Europe, 8 hours from here. And we just used to be in contact with strangers. And the first art form has something to do with some spiritual beliefs, in a sense that the first painting that came, that we knew, through the bidimensional form, came in the luggages of those who went in pilgrimage to Mecca. Since we are 19, people, they go to Mecca, they come back. They were bringing some gift, and most of those gifts were glass paintings. So for me, it's really amazing to realize that. So the first glass paintings, they have a high spiritual taste, and they were kind of illustration of images and of histories which had something to do with prophets, with Islam, with the angels, with judgment time, and so so we had those images for a while, and then in the beginning of in the 19th century, because I was saying we have been colonized by the French, and the French came with a project, they so-called civilize. I mean, everybody knows that colonization, just like slavery, just like what became globalization, is just a process of capitalism. How people can go spread all over the world and take what they need by force, or and it's really tragic, colonization, because as I was saying, this schizophrenia is a permanent thing you have to deal with. Just like for me right now, if I say that, okay, I'm African in 2014, which is the African part of me, where is the African part of me, where is the Islamic part of me, and where is the Western part of me? And I was dealing, I had hard time when I was 20, because I started to write, to think, to express myself, and I was saying I didn't want to use the language of the French, so I started writing in Wolof, because Wolof is one of the main language everybody use, and you can write it using the Latin character, but you can write it also using the Arabic character, and it's interesting because, for example, even right now, when people talk about literacy in Senegal, they say, okay, 70% of people, they can read, they can write, they're illiterate, which is not true, because we have a huge amount of literature based on Arabic character that people use to write books about spirituality, about philosophy, about poetry. So coming back to glass painting, the first glass painting came, and after that, people of Senegal, some people who need the expression felt the need to express themselves, start to reproduce them, and at a certain point they start to localize them. What I want to say is that it was about spirituality, but people, they didn't want to talk about spirituality which is far. They just wanted to talk about spirituality which was closer, meaning representing their spiritual guides that we had. And it's interesting because it give me opportunity to talk about something which is really specific to Senegal, the relation between power and image. This relation, all along the historical process, there were times where the power was afraid of art. There were times where power was combining with art. There were times where power was using art. So in the 19th century, there was a spiritual guide called Sheikh Amadou Bamba. He was a local spiritual guide who was preaching something really androgynous, something contextualized Senegal. And the message he was saying was really totally against French colonial power. So it was so true that one day the governor, the French governor, came up with a law forbidding, right? No. Okay, saying that people are not supposed to use those images, because the image was a kind of a tool for propaganda against the colonial regime. So at that point, people start to paint, to represent. This is Sheikh Amadou Bamba, the white person on the red horse, and it's interesting also the proportions. The way they were using images, it was just phantasmagoric, and they were not referring to any kind of, canon, so-called academic canon. They were just expressing themselves, the way. And most of those people who were doing the glass painting were cultivators. And because we have 2 seasons, dry season and rainy season. It only rained 3 months in Senegal, from July to September. And so after that, they finish with the field. They just do other jobs. Some people were interested on painting, so they started to do it. So because of just images of and just trying to illustrate. And this image is interesting because this is supposedly popularly what happens to a man who is not taking care of his wife. That's going to be his punishment. You know, after he died, you know, he's going to be used, you know, just that's and there were images like that. So this is the son of one spiritual guide, popular, you know, and also the mix between photography and yeah, this is the guy also, the mix between photography and glass painting. People were switching because it was a time where people, we have been through so many changes that at that time people to take picture, it was an event. They had to, you know, you dress well, you go to the photograph you know, place, and they have kind of decor, and you know they can give you some costumes, you know, to create a kind of a scenography for you to have a very interesting picture. And when I look at those pictures on that time, I think more about serenity and dignity. And also that was a time where economically and politically it was calm and quiet, in a sense that people were not confused, you know, they were not unemployed person, you know, everything was working. And right now, I mean, so this is interesting also, this image, because you see how he represents the French way out of proportion. And this is the guy who, you know, those new, let's say, sorry to say it, slave houses, you know, in a sense that this is a civil servant, a guy who worked for administration, and he just steal the money from the government, you know, and most of the time they're related to women. They say, okay, people, they steal money to go to, you know, to give it to women. And so what I find interesting is the proportions, you know. Even Stevie Wonder was represented, you know, because it was in the 70s. Wrestling is a big thing, but you know, it's just kind of naive the way they use this. And I like this image too also, because you know, we never see a horse like that, you know, in confrontation to a hen. But it's about, this is really conceptual in a sense that it's a representation of space and time. You know, and you know, the horse going for distances, and time was, you know, very, you know, predominantly represented by this really bright red hen. Do we say hen? Yes, I can. Cock, rooster, merci beaucoup. Yeah, and this is, yeah, some storytelling, you know. And then glass painting changed, because after the independences in the 70s, Senghor promoted. It's strange because from the colonial power who just was against image, here come the independency where we have a president who was promoting art, and he was really promoting art, you know, putting money and defending the artists, and you know, creating and just giving them lots of money. They were young and rich at the time, and Senghor, he always traveled with artists and art forms, you know, paintings and sculptures, really, and you know, was financing. For example, in 1966, organized in Senegal the first international Black Art Festival, and many people from all over the world, from the African diaspora, they came. It was a big thing, you know, and Senghor was, and he funded it from the government money, you know. And at that time, as I was saying, the situation economically was stable. So, because right now, for example, right now there is a Biennale of Senegal, of Dakar. It's the international art festival, but it's run by the government. But the thing is, the finance are not coming from Senegal in general. In you know, the big part of the money, which is the problem, you know. So later there are some artists who have been to school, of art school, and just use this medium. And one of the things also with glass painting, traditionally, the way they were doing it was mostly aplat. Do you say aplat? Just you know, a layer of color. They were not kind of relief, you know, no values. And also the artist would make his drawing, his model on a paper, and he would be able also to reproduce it as you know, anytime he wanted. But there were artists who just came and did the, something else, because they just appropriate, they just took this art form and do, what's going on here? Sorry. So I'm going to go from that to what I'm doing right now, because I have 40 minutes. I have lots of things to, I have to be focused. So with my wife is an artist, we work together, and we do some projects that call alternative mosaic making. Okay, let me see Portland presentation. Okay, hold on. So we do some kind of alternative mosaic, in a sense that the mosaic we do is not flat. It has kind of opportunities of bas relief, because we use any kind of object we want, unless it is, we avoid to use just like plastics and paper and things that the time will deteriorate quickly. So this is the public project that we have done in front of, this is the wall of our house. So in front of the house there is the mosque. So it's 13 meters long. So we did it with the neighbors and people of the surrounding. And let me show you making. So it took us, let's say, four months from July to December to do it. But this kind of work, if someone commissioned us to do it, we can do it in a month. But we were just doing it, taking our time, and also depending on how people were coming, and also depending on the rain, because it was rainy season, it was kind of hard to do it. So, and we just take advantage of the fact that it was, we were just in front of the mosque to do it. And the surrounding, the neighbors are the majority of people are Muslim. So one of the specificity of this art form is that you can use, we use mainly glass painting also a lot to be able, because we can, it's a kind of art form that allow you to even use poetry, but to write, to do those writings or those letters, we use that glass painting to be able to do it. So, and we mix, it's a kind of a really concentrated color in these pots, and we mix sand and white cement to do it. And this is a kind of a tree of the prophets, just like genealogy, arbre genealogique, but we just, and we relate to the historical also, context of coming of the glass painting. And also, since we were doing a public art, and it has something to do with Islam, with the community, we just ask contribution from people also, what they want to represent, and put also the name of the people who are in the surrounding that do pass away. And while we were doing the mosaics also, in these 4 months, there were people who died meanwhile, and we put their name also on the wall. And ask people for what kind of sentence, because it gives us opportunity to use Wolof, to write some proverbs in Wolof, some proverbs or saying in English, in French, in Arabic. And it's amazing, because just the way people connect with that work, because it was just like somebody was saying to me, because we use mirror also, lots of mirror, and one friend of me saying to me, people they relate to your work because their image is reflected on the mirrors. But I mean, he was joking, but it was true in a way, That's the mosque. So it was a whole process of, and this kind of work is really tough in a sense that it requires 3 things in you. It requires emotion, It requires, you know, using your brain. It requires also lots of muscles. It's really really hard, you know. Really hard. And at the end of the day, you just are, but you're happy because the result is here, and everybody's, you know, and everything you have to do it with your hand. We put 2 pairs of gloves, a tissue a glove made of tissue and plastic. So you have to be quick because the cement dry very quick, and you have to rub. That's why this work, every time I do it, I think about archaeology. So we came up with this whole series of work called Poetic Archaeology. Because, you know, archaeology, just like when people are looking for some bones of ancient, you know, animals and like that, the way they were trying to trace life, for me, the same way we're trying to trace life and poetry. So I always think about it when I'm, you know, and I'm happy to be, you know, because you put the elements, and then you cover them with the grout, and then you have to reveal them. It's always about revelation, you know, and light. And you see people, you know, people who and sometimes if you put the grout, you can't stop working even if it's nighttime. Otherwise you mess up everything, because when the cement dry, you're gonna have really hard time using a razor to scrub the thing. It's better to use it to work while it's wet, even if it's not time. You know, it's just like being in prison. So some details.
So most of the tiles with writing are actually clear glass with
Exactly.
paint on the back.
Exactly. That's why they call it under glass painting. In French, they say peinture sous verre, sous le verre, you know. And people, you know, the local people, they say sous verre. Just sous verre. They don't say peinture sous verre. This is too French for them. It was just like a battlefield. You have to conquer every surface, and you can't do it in a hurry. Otherwise, you mess up. And you have to it's really kind of just like a meditation, kind of, and you know, and at the same time you work, and people because it's a way that it's a road. People they just walk and they comment, and you have to react to that also. At the same time you're working, it's challenging.
Do you have a master plan that you work from, or do you have it all planned out somewhere in your head?
Yes, we had planned, because, you know, since it's about Islam, it's about praying. I made a whole series of paintings based on the different posture of a Muslim who is praying, and I worked through it, you know, in paintings, printmaking, 3-dimensional video, and it has something to do with also 9/11. Because there was a time where people were thinking that Islam rhymes with bombs and, you know, terrorism and stuff like that. And I think that Muslims are hijacked in both ways by states, institutions, and just like those groups, so-called terrorists. And there are so millions of Muslims around the world who has nothing to do with that, who peacefully do their thing, you know. And for me, as a visual artist, I thought that it would be a good thing to just be able to play around that because it's just like writing in a space when you pray, you know. It's a meditation. So we represent the different posture of somebody praying. There was a place where, anyways, you will see it. We underline it. And we were using also some because Senegal, we have some public transportation which are really colorful, and people they draw things in the public and they put also some writing, some poems, some proverbs. So we were also trying to create a link, because people, they know it, they're used to it, and we just put it in the work, you know. And the moon is really important in Islam in a way, in a sense that we base, when we calculate, we base mostly on the moon, you know, 28 days, you know. Oh, there's something else. So after fighting for 4 months, we have this result. So I was mentioning that right now we have a festival, art festival, called Dakar Biennale, and we take advantage of this festival to present, to reveal the wall, and also to produce little series of mosaic that we call archaeology. So this is the fourth big mosaic mural that we have done. The first, we have done 2 in Texas in 2011. In a little city called Mart, Texas, not so far from Waco. I think that Waco is more known than Mart. And we made the 3rd one in Senegal. So this was the first one. Photo project. And the type photo as well. Okay, here. So these are mosaic that we have done, but in you know, kind of a reasonable scale. Because it's heavy. You can approach it just like a canvas. You can make large, just like a thing like that. It's so heavy because you have to first to take a plywood and to take a kind of a plaster and glue it, and then put your element and grout it with cement. So imagine how heavy it could be. So I like, after fighting with walls like that, I like to just work in, you know, size like that, you know, that I can handle, you know, and move. And I like also, because my work has something to do with words also, because I like words. I like poetry, and I like meaning of word. And I think that in terms of installation, conceptually, a word is really important. Just like we were talking yesterday about, you know, the difference between how we perceive, you know, words in here, or the way we express ourselves in a foreign country, just like Africa. And I like that saying. We have a proverb saying that you have to give a nice dress to your word, meaning that you have to when you say something, it has to be highly poetic, you know, to be humanly accepted. So I like words to, you know, in my work. Besides the fact that I write poetry in Wolof, in French, I also use it in my work. And also, I like to mix the major when I work. For example, at the same time, this is Musana's work. Musana is my wife. because we work separately, but we work collaboratively also. You know. So I like to at the same time I'm doing this kind of work to. I can be managing 2 projects at the same time. I don't know how. For example, you know, I have a whole project, because this has something to do with something I'm going to be talking about. It's a collective project, community project that we're doing outside of the city, and it's not so far from the sea. And the sea is just, the tide of the sea bring lots of trash, and in the trash there are lots of shoes, a lot. And it's really talks to me, those shoes. It talks to me in the sense that shoes has something to do with human being. It's really has something to do with human condition. Because I mean, maybe before we were not using shoes, but we had to move. I like the idea of movement, but more than that, I like, because since we coming from a so-called third world country, we just confronting with the wall, the modern wall of the world. You know, it's like somebody was saying, the guy who make the cacao, or the orange, or the ananas, pineapple. The pineapple can go, but the guy is not able to go. And they talk about globalization, and they say it's a free circulation of ideas, people, and goods, but it's not true. So I like this idea of working with shoes, and I want to make big flip-flops, just like this size, you know, with the flip-flops, you know. So I start with this. While I was grouting and making my mosaic and stuff, you know, it was cooking also in my head. Before I just wash my hands or just take my, you know, it's just some compulsive attitude I have with, you know, the medium. It talks to me. I just developed this series. And the shoes, they mix with the element of the sea. It's amazing. Okay, at the same time, the same process. My father is 94, but since he was 58, he was blind, so he never see my work. And also, since he is blind, a blind person doesn't have eyes, but his eyes are his hands, you know. And he, since he was not blind since he was a child, his hands are shy. And I noticed it, because when he used to touch my children, I was noticing the way he was touching it. Because a blind person, when he meets somebody, he was just, you know, try to see where are the nose, you know, try to, you know. But my father was so shy, he just touched the heads, you know, like that. I was saying, why he's doing that? Why he doesn't touch them to know how they look like, you know? And I developed a whole series called Toucher pour voir, is touch to see. And it has something to do with also a text that I have seen from Montesquieu a long time. There was an interview of a blind person, and they were asking him if God gave him eyes, would we be happy? He said, no, I don't want eyes. I just want long arm that I can touch everything in the world, because my arm are my eyes. And I like that, you know, that thing. So I have a whole series about hands. The same way, you know. Oh, sorry. Whether I'm doing printmaking, whether I'm, you know, before I ink, before I take the plate to the, you know, I can take the, you know, it just, even if I work when I cut, you know, when I use aloe vera, my child. This is a painting of a hand that I have done in Colombia. I've been in Colombia in residency last year, no, 2 years ago, and social justice was in my head every time. This is while we were doing the mosaic. This was in Texas. It was about fish. poetry about fish and flower. And this actually, they were making cake at home, and they burned the cake, and they were about to throw it out, to throw it in the trash. And that day, the light was so beautiful. I just catch the cake, and you know, and it reminded me also, you know, the color of the cake remind me of raw material, and also as African, somebody from a complexion, African complexion also, you know, this link between the complexion of human beings when they make them be just like a raw material also. It's like in a globalization process how we have been used long time ago, just like merchandise, you know, objects, you know. Chocolate cake. And also my children, they have, my wife is American, she's from here, she's from Philadelphia. So my children, they have English books. So they have one of their books, it's called, it's a book, I don't know what is it called, but it's just, it's a little story. They say, white sheep, what do you see? And he say, I see, just like I see a wolf looking at me. So I made, based on that, I just made a series, black hen, what do you see? So I just take, and also the idea of complexion. There is no such thing like white people, black people, and yellow people. That's just you know, it's a cliche. I'm not black. This is black. And you guys are not white. You know, white is this. You know. So I was just playing around that, you know. So this is also, in any circumstance, this is actually my child when he was born, because he was born in water. And it was just my wife and me, and a video and my camera, and you know, even that special, crucial moment, you know, I happened to, because the hands was talking to me, and you know, it's, you know. Yeah, it was in Texas also. And the hands also, and knowledge. I'm really interested, because since I was 5, we were living in a little city outside of Dakar, and we were living in front, our house was in front of the mosque, and there were some people who were selling some books, and I was really amazed by books. And I was conscious of the power of a book. For me, a book is something, an object, a powerful object that if you open it, light comes out of it. And I was conscious of the fact that, you know, there was my father had friends, you know, have relatives, people have knowledge, and how people were respecting those people, because they had books also, you know, and they had power, therefore. So I'm really interested by, and also they were writing, and they were giving things. I remember saying to my father, don't take me to school, because I don't need to go to school. I will write things to give to people. You know, I remember that, you know, at the time. So. Yeah. I'm going to show you just some image. Okay, I'm going to talk about this project that we're doing. It's called Porte et Passage. We set up an art collective of art outside of Dakar, trying to build what we call a center for art and holistic development. We're trying to see how we can create link between art and everyday preoccupation of people. So we have that collective of art. Art is called, well, the image is too big for Porte et Passage du Retour, which means doors and passageways of return. Just giving, trying to give, because we're living in a region of the world where people, they think that nothing is possible over there. And we believe that it's the opposite. Everything is there to make us happy if we connect ourselves to the richness of our surroundings. And it's a place where you knew about it. many young people, they took boats trying to follow the illusion of going west to realize themselves, which is the need. Which is something natural to human beings. When you somewhere, when it's not fine, you have a tendency to go, because you think that the other side the grass is greener, even though there are snakes and everything else negative, but you know. But you go because it's just something. It has something to do with the shoes also. You have to move, you know, and the world is ours, you know. Even though they define, you know, the globalization have a tendency to put those institutional walls to block people. At the same, it's funny because at the same time, they came up with Facebook, and you have walls also, and you have everything. It's a virtual wall, and they say it's for everybody, and it's really funny for me to think about the different walls, and I think about also the fact that one of the things that we see from the moon or when we're in the space is the wall of China and the wall of Jerusalem and our relation with wall and the first Rupert painting, you know, how we were projecting ourselves and our needs, our thoughts you have a very intriguing relation with wall through the time, you know, and right now it's a very amazing wall, this virtual wall, which is for me is challenging in the sense that virtuality can never replace reality. You know, I can't admit the fact that I have 1,000 or 1 million friends and I can say hello to my neighbor. It's you know, we have to think about all those things and how we in this digital we screen the screen. We always in the screen, and we just sometimes just, you know, missing lots of things in reality. It's just like when people go somewhere, instead of just, you know, just looking and feeling and being present, but it just every time, you know. I don't know, you know, and the best, sometimes I'm really frustrated because I see something and I want to take a picture of it and I don't like the picture. And I realize that my eyes is more powerful than this camera. And, you know, for a visual archiving system, I think that we have to be more conscious of what we can do more than the technology. Technology is really great, you know, it gives us opportunity to do this talk, presentation, but we have to be careful, you know, to not be, we create it. It's not the technology that's gonna, you know, determine how our life, you know, and we don't have to miss reality. So we are outside of Dakar. Dakar, the capital of Senegal, is here. And there's the road, and we are here somewhere, 114 kilometers. And Dakar is a capital, airports and everything. And where we are, there is no running water, there is no electricity, but we have electricity and running and water. Because it's a place where if you dig 5 meters, you have water. And we have the sun. All the year long we have sun. So we have solar energy. So at the end of the month, nobody is bothering me with bills, which is something. And we have internet. And we're trying to set up a place where artists can come. Not only artists, everybody who is in terms of reflection is working in a process of producing alternative meaning to how things are going on. You know, it can be researchers, it can be intellectuals, but artists, you know, since we're artists, they have the priority, of course. Anyway, we're trying to work with artists. We're trying to work with the community. We have a group of association of ceramic. They do it traditionally. So we just approached them 4 years ago because they used to sell their stuff in a rural market, which is really interesting, every Wednesday, and we were just trying to see what can we do with that land, because that place, the land is is dark and rich, and that land have been staying still since 25 years, and it's really rich, lots of termites. So you can do everything with that land. You can grow organic things, you can do ceramics, you can even build. You know, that's what we were trying to do. Try to put emphasis on what is it around, you know. So since 2005, we were there trying to set up something with local artists and international artists, you know. Also trying to work with also the art student from Dakar, because there's a problem in Dakar because, you know, many young artists, when they finish art school, they have a problem of space of working. So we just give them opportunity to stay and to develop a body of work, you know, as long as they want. And yeah, and every year we organize a kind of a workshop with these women potters, where we just give them opportunity to see that the practice of using ceramic and working with earth is really international and wide. And it's not, because when we approached them, they thought that we came to steal their knowledge. That's what they told us. But at the end of the day, you know, they were so, I mean, things have so changed that I think that they have so much expectation on us that is frightening in a way. But in any way, we give them opportunity even to reflect upon their work, because each of them were working in her own house, and they never worked together. So we create a space where they can work together, and also can talk about the history, what makes them be potters, because it has something to do with the sociological organization of over there, because the potter is the wife of the blacksmith. So they, you know, it's like that. For example, in a rural area, you will never see a man who is doing pottery. It's not possible. So it was kind of intriguing for those people in the rural area, even to see us as artists coming and, you know, working with the women, and, you know, and even for us to have opportunity to work with them, we had to have authorization from the husband. They had to come, because they live in different villages, and one of the husbands, we represent the others, had to come and see where we are, and, you know, what is going on there, what kind of person we were, you know. And so every year we organize a workshop where we do those things, and we're trying to make them be in a situation of producing something that they're not used to, because they always do the same thing, and they produce things that people utilize, just like to cook, but they at the same time they do just like sculptures and other things, but they call them furniture. I don't know why. They say this is our furniture, you know, this is the thing that people use. It's like water container, and when you make couscous, but they say, and I like those furniture. That's what was interesting for me, you know, the way they were expressing birds, and, you know, it was really great, and they managed to improve the way they work. And when after we organize those workshops, we kind of organize the opening day, and we also invite local artists to come to perform, you know.
Fauske, do you want to go on? It's 3 o'clock. People might be showing up for the workshop.
Mm-hmm.
Around the corner. Do you want to continue the discussion there?
Yeah, it's up to you guys. You know.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Merci. Yeah.